Hey, it's Smalls, and as promised, I'm going to tell you about my very first paranormal experience. And what ghost story is complete without candlelight, so that's what we have here. I do have a little bit of help from my LEDs, but there are candles. I love candles, but I digress. Let's get into the story. So, this story really kind of starts back to when I was a toddler. In my household, there was my mother, my sister, who is 20 years older than me, and my niece, who is a year and a few months older than me. So she really grew up with me. We were more like sisters than a niece-aunt relationship, which I'm sure you can understand. Well, I would apparently, I do not remember this, but apparently I would be totally copacetic in my room by myself talking to my toys. And it got to the point that I kind of freaked out my family because I would have these full-on conversations with no one, and I would just be totally fine in my room by myself for hours. So I don't have any recollection of this. It could have just been my awesome imagination, but my sister had spoken with me about this rather recently, so it was definitely something that stuck out to her. So my first paranormal experience takes place in this house. This house was a brick ranch style 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. You've probably been in a house like this. And the story of this house is that the man who built it had just finished building it and unfortunately had to go to war and unfortunately died in the war. And our landlady at the time, I guess she picked it up and had owned it and managed it for a very long time. And my family moved into the house, and my brother and sister spent most of their lives in that house, and then I had spent my entire life in that house up until the time I was about 4. Well, at this point, my sister had moved into the house, and my mother and my grandmother and I moved into a much bigger house in a more affluent neighborhood, and my sister had a boyfriend at the time, and my niece, of course, lived there as well. And I was in the kitchen waiting for her to stop arguing with her boyfriend, and this was just an eat-in kitchen. And they were mid-argument, and while they were arguing, we just hear something slide above us on the cabinets. So they stop arguing, we all collectively look up, and what we see is this yellow tin cookie jar levitating adjacent to the cupboard, and it had to been there for about 3 or 4 seconds, but it felt like forever. And I had talked to my sister about this recently, and she remembers the story exactly the same way that I do. So that was my first paranormal experience, was seeing something freaking levitate. And when the jar finally did fall, it was very, very loud. It was just an empty tin jar that had fallen from, I don't know, at least 8 feet. But my sister said that she had seen a man sitting on the top of the couch. He wasn't sitting on the seat part. He was sitting on the back part of the sofa. And basically the way she had the house set up is that you would come down the hallway, and at the end of the hallway you could see the couch, and that's when she had seen this man. And she was so terrified that she took my niece and I out of our bedroom to come sleep with her. And I should note that I did not live with my sister at that time. I just stayed the weekends with her because I was so close with them. But I digress. That was my very first paranormal experience. Have you ever seen anything levitate? How creepy is that? Thank goodness I've not seen anything levitate. I don't think that I would be ready for that. And I honestly would have probably thought that was a dream if my sister hadn't brought that up and told me that it was not. So I kind of wish we were still in contact with her ex-boyfriend so he could also tell us what he remembers. But, you know, my sister and I remember the exact same thing. So I guess that is about it for this story. I do have more stories. I don't have any more from that house, but I do have some from the house that I moved into when I was 4 with my mother and grandmother, and I have a lot more from my teenage years. So If you're interested in hearing more about my paranormal stories, definitely consider subscribing. And if you have any experiences that you want to share, please comment below. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a good day.